Hi, my name is Anne McElhinney.
And I'm Phelan McAleer.
Welcome to the Anne and Phelan Scoop. It's week 105 of the 2 weeks to flatten the curve lockdown.
I remember that 2 weeks. God, that was the longest 2 weeks in Christendom.
Indeed.
Yeah, so just remember that when the government tells you it's just an emergency, it's just 2 weeks, just like that 105 weeks later, we still have vaccine passports. I went to the theatre the other night and managed to sneak in without
that was quite funny. There were 6 of us, and the guy came out and was looking at the passports. Phelan couldn't find the passport, and in all the confusion, the guy thought he'd got the passport off him. Yes. So there he went in there, you big unvaccinated.
And watched leftist nonsense.
Indeed. Anyway, what are we looking at? What are we looking at this week, Phelan?
On the show this week, New York Times has broken a massive story. Journalism, all the news fit the print. Wow, they're wonderful, and it's a 17-month-old story that I've been boring myself with for the last 17 months. You know, and don't forget, the Geneva Convention on the treatment of prisoners of war does not matter as long as the people we like are breaking it. That's the new rules.
Apparently.
The new rules that you can break all conventions as long as it's...
your side.
As long as it's our side, the nice people, the good people.
And Colorado has beautiful mountains and lakes, but the ugliest possible laws just about anywhere on this earth. We talk in a while to Ingrid Duran from the National Right to Life to explain the latest from Colourful Colorado. Did you know, by the way, it's called Colourful Colorado?
I thought you made that up.
No, it's called Colourful Colorado.
Colourful.
It's also called the Centennial State, but Colourful Colorado is another of the names.
You know what? Purple Mountain's Majesty. Oh, Purple Mountain. I think that
was written in Boulder, Colorado. It was written, in Colorado Springs, I believe.
And
all the people in Colorado will be writing in and saying we're wrong about that, but you can write in. And by the way, talking of which, abortion is so funny that it's the stuff of comedy now, according to the left.
We'll be looking at a play to open in New York. Talking and the horror. They have no shame and other journalistic outrage cliches. That I'm going to just go on and on about. What a horror, what a shocker. Bloomberg are recommending that to save money, well, actually, we'll just have to ask Scaredy Cat and Top Cat to leave the room during the segment. I will talk about that when they leave the room. Okay, what Bloomberg are suggesting is not fit for their delicate, small ears. So
horrible people. And the big question that many of you have been asking every time you go to Costco, should you buy an air fryer? I will bring you the answer to that question, another incredible impenetrables to do with the culinary arts as well. You can decide after you see what I've done with a piece of cod with the air fryer, my latest piece of equipment. But first, tell us, Phelan, about this New York Times story. I really love this so much. It's unbelievable. So the New York Times, like literally the New York Times, have finally acknowledged that the laptop from hell is real.
The Hunter Biden's laptop, not just the laptop is real, but the emails on the laptop are real. The headline of the story is Hunter Biden paid tax bill, but broad federal investigation continues.
Yawn.
Boring. And then where?
That's right. You start reading through this, on and on and on article, on and on and on. And when you get to the piece that really matters, that the laptop is real, it is in paragraph 24.
No, laptop and emails are real.
These people have absolutely no shame. And by the way, they got 3 journalists to write that. Katie Benner, Kenneth Vogel and Michael Schmidt. The 3 of them wrote this piece. As I said, 17 months after the New York Post broke the story.
And after people have been saying this is real. I have to say, as a journalist, I think what happened there was someone was tasked to write the story and said, I'm not taking the heat for this failure of journalism. Actually, it's not even a failure of journalism. It's journalistic malfeasance. It's rigging an election. It's spreading lies. It's behaving unethically. I'm not taking the heat for this. So they brought in 2 other journalists just so that no journalist could be targeted.
And I'll just give you the paragraph. So paragraph 24 of this laborious article, which, by the way, the headline should have the laptop in it, by the way, but of course they didn't do this. So this is paragraph 24. People familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Mr. Biden, Mr. Archer and others about Burisma and other foreign business activities. Those emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appear to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation. As I said, 17 months later.
Look, these emails were authenticated before the last election. I mean, and by the way, the New York Times knows this, right? There are many ways to authenticate a
Yes.
hard drive.
You've made this
You can
point
send it to data analysis people, but you can also
Phone people.
phone people who are CC'd on emails and
Did
saying,
you get this email?
Did you get this email?
Yeah.
And if you,
Very easy.
You know, and you remember all these people being CC'd on it, and the person will go back into their emails and say, oh yeah, there's the email, and it's a match to the exact email. You know, it's not that difficult, right?
But it's incredible. What we want to do right now is to remember 17 months ago, this is before the election, when the New York Post broke this story. And it's good to remember. It's good to remember how the left treated this extraordinary story.
And also, I want to just say, look, you need to know what's on this laptop. Like, Hunter Biden was getting paid millions of dollars by Chinese government entities, Ukrainian government entities, Russian government entities, 3.5 million from a Russian mayor of Moscow's wife, you know, money from foreign entities for nothing. And in these emails, most importantly, he said he was setting up 10% for the big guy. And Tony Bobulinski, his business partner, said the big guy was Joe Biden. He also complained of having to give 50% of his money to his father, who is now the president of the United States. So lots of millions.
And at the time that his father had the portfolio of in charge of Ukraine and was the vice president of the United
foreign
States.
affairs. So an amazing story that needed to be investigated, and they didn't investigate it.
This is how the mainstream media reported on this story when it came out first, and this is from the Media Research Center have put together this video. Let's have a look.
Biden's secret emails.
A really fishy story.
The Post claimed that the emails were found on a laptop computer that was brought to a repair shop in Delaware in the spring of 2019.
The FBI is now investigating whether those alleged Hunter Biden emails are actually connected to a larger foreign intelligence operation.
They may be related to a foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence operation.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
The information found on the laptop may be part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Part of a Russian disinformation effort.
Described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks.
All the hallmarks of a Russian
disinformation.
Russian
disinformation campaign.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
And it wasn't just them, by the way, and it wasn't just those outlets. Yeah. We also had NPR, you know, I mean, I want to just put up some of these headlines. We're going to have a look at some of these, like, you know, NPR on Twitter, like, I just love this. NPR, because they became, you know, they got a lot of flack. They actually put up a tweet.
Why haven't you?
And they said,
I did a question.
Why
haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the New York Post's Hunter Biden story? Read more in this week's newsletter.
And here's what they said. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. And we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions.
Can I just say something here? Look, this is why we're making the Hunter Biden movie.
Yes.
This is why
Yes.
you funded the Hunter Biden movie, My Son Hunter. This is why we spent 2 months in Serbia making the Hunter Biden movie. And this is why a lot of the Hunter Biden movie is set in the Ukraine, because this is the story.
NPR's managing editor for news on the New York Post Hunter Biden story.
Managing editor for news.
Yeah,
He's definitely a managing editor. He manages the news. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, actually, I want to play this one from Christina Manapur.
As you know perfectly well, I'm a journalist and a reporter, and I follow the facts. And there has never been any issues in terms of corruption. Now, let me ask you this. Yesterday, the FBI...
FBI... How do you know that?
I'm talking about reporting and any evidence. I'm talking to you now.
Okay, I would love if you guys would start doing that digging and start doing that verification.
No, we're not going to do your work for you. I want to ask you a question. The FBI,
it's a journalist's job. It's a journalist's job to find out if this is verified.
Yeah, so there's Christina Manapur saying it's not her job to do journalism. Of course, it's your job to work out whether these emails were genuine or not. But when they don't want the story to be true, they will not investigate it. And you've got other examples, Anne.
Sohrab Ahmari,
yes,
who we had on the show, who at the time was the New York Post opinion editor, yes, I think it was, right? And Sohrab had just literally tweeted just the other day, he said, you know, what I tweeted on that fateful day, totally and completely vindicated. And basically, you know, he had retweeted their own story, the New York Post story. And he said at the time, and this is on October 14th, 2020, this is a big tech information coup. This is digital civil war. I, an editor at the New York Post, one of the nation's largest papers by circulation, cannot post one of our own stories that details corruption by a major party presidential candidate. And here's what Twitter said to him. As I said, This was a New York Post story that was broken, extraordinary story that was true. Tweet not sent. Your tweet could not be sent because this link has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially harmful. Visit our help center to learn more. And we know that big tech censored this story, but not just them. CNN, you know, unbelievable. Like this is a headline from the CNN. The anatomy of the New York Post's dubious Hunter Biden story, you know, and Politico. Look what Politico said. Hunter Biden email story has all the hallmarks of Russian campaign. You know, 50 senior US intel officers saying, can I just stop on this 50 senior US intel officers? I just tweeted this out the other day because this is what occurred to me. So 50 senior, the most senior really, intel officers in the United States, 50 of them said that the Hunter Biden laptop, emails, etc., the whole thing was Russian disinformation. Two possibilities there. Neither of them are good. One, that they were lying, that these 50 intel officers, senior intel officers at the CIA were lying. The second option is equally awful. It's that they're incompetent. Either way, it's really bad news for America.
They left themselves enough outs in the letter saying, you know, we have no evidence of this, but it has all the hallmarks. So they can now say, no, we had lots of caveats. But when the media, like Politico, you know, there's Politico, Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo. Doesn't a former intel official say? That's Political. You know, when the media ran with headlines that, you know, they got rid of the caveats, the intelligence officials didn't jump up and say, oh no, there's more context to this. They allowed it to be run.
They allowed to run cover for this story. Yeah. They allowed the New York Times, etc., all of them to just completely shirk their responsibilities, their journalistic responsibilities to investigate this, because they allowed them to say, oh, well, actually, 50 intel officers who have access to everything are saying that it's probably Russian disinformation.
Which is why we have
made this movie
where we've got Gina Carano in it, why we've got Lawrence Fox in it, why we've got John James doing a wonderful Joe Biden.
Why we have Robert Davi directing. Absolutely extraordinary. We can't wait to bring it to you. And don't worry, we'll have news of that. It's all about to happen very, very soon.
Very soon.
You know, obviously, this is a movie. It's a big movie. It's beautiful, and things need to be done. So music, colour, sound, but it's happening. It's happening. It's fantastic, and you'll be very, very happy. But there's another headline, by the way, from Slate at the time. An ethical computer repair shop wouldn't do that to Hunter Biden. The New York Post's controversial scoop involves some shady behaviour by a laptop repairman.
Victimize the source.
And here's Vice. We are collectively losing touch with reality, and it's extremely obvious. The New York Post's Hunter Biden laptop story is conspiracy candy. And you wonder why people don't trust the mainstream media. I mean, this is extraordinary, and it went on and on and on. But
it has real world consequences too. It swung an election.
Yes. There was election interference by the New York Times, by CNN, by NBC, by the media.
But also, it now means that we cannot believe a word that they had a tenuous grip on credibility anyway. But really, you can't believe. You have to triple check everything now. We've got real problems. People are more prone now to believe conspiracy theories because the mainstream
the trusted sources can't be trusted.
So, and this is a problem, and we should talk now. Oh, by the way, if you want to help get the Hunter Biden movie out there, go to mysonhunter.com. That's mysonhunter.com. And we're hoping to bring you a clip of My Son Hunter soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
And we know people are writing and asking, where's the film? And people are very anxious. It's a process. We can't make it happen quicker than it can happen. I mean, this is a beautiful film, and it needs to be, treated like a proper movie. But yes, all coming soon.
As I was saying earlier, this corporate media malfeasance makes it difficult to really trust anything you see now in the media, and this has got real world problems. For example, with the war in Ukraine, people are just reluctant to believe almost what's in front of their eyes. One thing I would say is, there's a lot going on there, and obviously our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine who are suffering terribly through this. You may have noticed lots of footage of Russian prisoners of war and Russian soldiers put on camera, crying, calling Putin evil and all that. And there was even a press conference. Crying Russian soldiers turn on Putin. Troops captured by Ukraine claim their leader is having their comrades thrown into mass graves as they urge their people to rise up against them. One soldier called the Russian president a liar and deceiver. Look, not one of these media reports, or maybe they've buried it just like the New York Times has done in the 23rd paragraph. It is 24th. Sorry, it is an absolute breach of the Geneva Convention on the Treatment of Prisoners of War to parade captured prisoners and to use them and to make them give statements. This has been a part of the Geneva Convention since the Geneva Convention had started for very good reason. These are prisoners of war, and they're entitled to their privacy. They're entitled to respect. Who knows what coercion has been put in the background to make these soldiers say what they want to say, what they are saying. Now, I would imagine they're not particularly happy with President Putin, especially some of the younger conscripts who've been drafted in. But I'm old enough to remember during the Iraq invasion when Al Jazeera was thrown off the New York Stock Exchange and thrown out of various places, Al Jazeera, the TV station from the Middle East, because they aired footage. I'm not even sure if it was interviews, but footage of American soldiers who had been captured by the Iraqis. Back then, it was seen to be bad to, and of course it is bad to air footage of prisoners of war. These are not voluntary statements made by people. We shouldn't pretend that they are. Now maybe the people do genuinely believe what they're saying, but we can't rely on that, and we shouldn't be broadcast, Well,
you're not meant to. You're not meant to. According to the Geneva Convention, you're not supposed to use these people in any way to.
So it's just funny. The rules seem to be depending on if my friend is breaking them or my enemy is breaking them.
Well, isn't that the truth though? Isn't that the truth with everything right now, by the way? Because cancel culture, by the way, only works for people that the left don't like. It doesn't work the other way. So, so Trudeau gets, to wear blackface.
On several occasions.
On several occasions, no bother at all.
Megyn Kelly gets fired for saying that she may have worn it once,
or that it was different when you were younger, or something.
When you were younger.
Said something, and they took the career away from her.
Nationalism seems to be okay now, as long as it's Ukrainian nationalism. I'm old enough again to remember growing up, Northern Ireland nationalism, as in nationalists in Northern Ireland. I remember people from your part of the world, and you didn't like us because we were nationalists. Nationalism when I was growing up was seen as something troglodyte and atavistic.
But I mean, by the way, you don't have to go back that far, Phelim. Brexit proved the very same thing as well, because obviously, some people who were voting for Brexit, that wasn't the only reason, by the way, had nationalist feelings, but that was apparently the worst thing in the possible.
Oh no, nationalism was troglodytes. I remember, people from the south of Southern Ireland. Well, I feel myself more European than Irish, right? And up north, I was thinking, funny. I feel Irish actually. Funny, it was weird. It was unfashionable in the south, in Southern Ireland, to be a Northern nationalist. You were sort of liked by the lefties in the UK because nationalism was okay there, but loyalists who lived beside me, everyone hated their nationalism, right? They were nationalists, and everyone despised their nationalism then. And I remember thinking, there were two sides to this. There was Irish nationalists and British nationalists, and I didn't see anything wrong with nationalism. It's a perfectly legitimate political expression. It makes countries secure. It makes people secure.
Makes countries strong.
Yes, strong. And strong countries are genuinely
are safer countries.
But now, so then, as you say, Brexit was. Oh my God! These were the troglodytes.
Nationalists.
Then you had Trump, and Trump basically, America first. That's a nationalistic stance. As someone said, I must check who said it. When every country puts their own country first, every country benefits. He said things like borders matter, sovereignty matters, border integrity matters. Not having your border weak matters. And now we're seeing that is exactly what every right-thinking person now across the Western world is saying about Ukraine. So Ukrainian nationalism is good, Ukrainian border security is good, but
It's very hard. It's very hard to keep up with the rules. By the way,
I'm confused.
Yeah, it's very confusing. But to get rid of some confusion in our world, we're going to go over right now to an interview we did earlier with Ingrid Duran, who is the State Legislative Director of the National Right to Life, to talk about what's happening with
the crazy laws.
Crazy laws, particularly in Colorado. We're going to go over to that now.
So we're joined now by Ingrid Duran, who serves as the Director of the State Legislation Department for the National Right to Life Committee. So basically, there's no one better than Ingrid to talk about the craziness that's going on in a lot of the states at the moment in response to the coming Supreme Court Roe decision. So welcome to the show, Ingrid.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Right.
So we want to start by asking you about Colorado. So we know that Colorado has the most extreme, what I think is probably one of the most extreme abortion laws on the planet Earth, where you can have an abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. Yet that is not enough for Colorado. Can you first of all tell us what is the law in Colorado and what are they trying to do to change it?
I just want to be clear here. You can have an abortion. Is this correct? You can have an abortion in Colorado at 8 months, 3 weeks, 6 days, and 23 hours. Is that right? Like up until the moment of it?
Yes, if you can find a doctor who's willing to perform an abortion in Colorado that late in pregnancy, there's nothing in your state law that would prohibit that or protect that baby.
And
almost born baby.
And there is a late term abortionist in Colorado Springs, isn't it?
No, in Boulder, Colorado, Hearn. That we've talked about Hearn in the past, and we in fact have interviewed a nurse that worked for him, and
oh boy,
and her story actually is kind of amazing. I might as well tell it right now. She told the story that what turned her, what ended her career with him was a couple who came happily married, healthy, pregnant with twins, healthy twins. And they said to the people working at the clinic, we talked to our friends, we researched it. And, we just thought twins wouldn't suit us. And they aborted perfectly healthy twins. And she said there was no one in the clinic, actually, funny enough, who wasn't appalled by that. But it finished her off anyway. That was the end of her. She walked out that day. Can you tell us about what is happening in Colorado?
Yeah, so Colorado does have an extreme abortion on demand policy that has no protection for the unborn child, right? And right now, you just had a bill pass, I believe it passed the Senate and it's now in the House. And this would find a fundamental right to abortion in your state, meaning that your state legislature or city council, you couldn't pass any kind of protective law, whether it is informed consent, any kind of abortion regulation, making sure that, the instruments are washed, that that they followed similar procedures to like veterinarians, right? It would not allow laws like parental involvement, informed consent, ultrasound information. And this becomes really, really dangerous because all of these laws that I'm mentioning are just very common sense protections for the abortion industry, whether it's requiring them to keep, reporting complications when an abortion happens, to require them to have humane disposal for the unborn child after the abortion, to require parental consent or parental notification prior to the minor having an abortion. These are all very common sense pieces of legislation that the public actually supports. We typically poll very high when it comes to parental involvement, informed consent, ultrasound. And so this bill would prohibit, it would be illegal for Colorado legislature to pass any pro-life bills. And so therefore, the unborn children in Colorado would not be protected. It would be an open season on the unborn child.
So it's a bit like some states, like say, for example, Texas or whatever, some states are passing laws now saying, there's a Second Amendment right to owning a gun. And so therefore no municipality or city is allowed to restrict people from owning a gun. Are you saying that's what they're trying to do in Colorado? They're trying to say there is a human right to an abortion. So therefore, the city of Aspen or Colorado Springs can't pass any legislation making it restrictive or mandating counseling or anything to stop that fundamental right. Is that what it is?
And that is correct, and that's a perfect analogy, likening it to the Second Amendment. They're basically saying that you cannot do anything to try to protect that unborn children who are capable of feeling pain, unborn children who have a heartbeat. That would not be allowed if this passes.
No, and no parental consent.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to pass anything.
Yeah, and is this
you wouldn't
kind
be
of
able to pass and nothing at all. And so I wanted to mention this is very common for our opposition to either introduce a law like what Colorado is considering right now, this fundamental right to abortion, that has also passed in New York and Illinois in 2019. I believe New York did it on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. Their governor signed their Reproductive Health Act. And theirs went even a little bit further because it repealed a law that they had on unborn victims, meaning that if you kill or assault a pregnant woman, there would be 2 counts. This would do away with that. Wow. And also it repealed their Born Alive law, which would provide care for an infant that survives an abortion attempt. So it really put New York in a really bad position. New Jersey recently passed a law like that.
You're saying that, so where a child survives an abortion attempt, they would then not resuscitate, or what would happen? They
wouldn't be required to by law. They wouldn't be required to render any aid.
Yeah, my question, I suppose, isn't Colorado, I mean, not that long ago, Colorado was conservative, and now I know it's purple, basically because of all the Californians 20 years ago who were screwing up their own state and fled to Colorado to screw it up. Is Colorado doomed now? Is it how on earth is this passing in Colorado?
I wouldn't say doomed. It's not a good position to be in. And our opposition, if they don't attack the unborn in this way by passing these like wildly extreme laws. The other thing that they're doing is they're going into states that have had pro-life laws for years and just trying to either repeal them or which they were successful last year in Virginia. Virginia's pro-abortion governor last year repealed their informed consent, ultrasound, 24-hour waiting period, and expanded who can perform abortions to lower level health professionals. So these are tactics used by the other side in order to undermine any kind of protection for unborn children. And so what we're seeing in states is we're seeing a mixture of these repeal laws or these reproductive health acts, which is like an abortion free-for-all. And I wouldn't necessarily say that Colorado is doomed. I think that these are good debates to have, very necessary debates to have. And so I think that, in the past, Colorado, I would say like in the early 90s, it was more poised to enact and pass pro-life legislation, whether through the legislature or through the referendum initiative process. Although lately that has been a little bit skewed. I know it's been a lot harder to pass pro-life laws in Colorado through that process. But I still do think that there are sometimes waves. I mean, right now the wave is hostile, but I think that's why our work is very necessary. I think that's why we have to have these discussions, and that's why we have to even pursue in the face of this evil, we have to still talk about unborn children who are capable of feeling pain, unborn children who have heartbeat, that have brainwave activity, talking about the humanity of these unborn children and their capacity to feel and their capacity to love, and just the possibilities that they would have if it were not for abortion. Mm-hmm. And I think that no matter what the legislature does, right? Our job in this ministry is to educate people beyond our base so that they understand just what happens during a dismemberment abortion, just what happens during a partial birth abortion. abortion, just what happens when a baby survives an abortion, and that we should be able to render care to that baby, at the same gestational age, that we should transfer that baby to a hospital so that they can have a chance. And this goes outside the scope of an abortion, right? This is after an abortion. And so sometimes we have to have these conversations and educate people beyond our base, because we have to change the minds and hearts of people. And laws like these that expose just how extreme the other side is and just exactly what they want. They went from wanting abortions to be safe, legal, and rare to shouting your abortions on the rooftop. So it's like, what is it?
Yeah, I think pro abortion advocates, they say late term abortion is very rare. Is it?
I don't think so, no, because we have people like Hearn, like Carhart, that it's a carved out specialty to provide these abortions late in pregnancy. And so I wouldn't say, I don't have the numbers with me right now, but I could follow up and give you some numbers on.
Well, yeah, we also know from our own personal experience.
I was going to make the point, actually, and it's interesting when you say that about the numbers, and I I don't need you to dig them up, because I think what we know for a fact is that, for example, in the case of Kermit Gosnell, who operated a clinic in Philadelphia that you know very well, and we made the movie and wrote the book about. He operated for 3 decades, and we know that he didn't report any of the late-term abortions, and they weren't obviously abortions, but he didn't report those numbers.
He didn't do any of the paperwork.
He didn't do any of the paperwork, and no one followed up with him ever. And that was Pennsylvania, very progressive, very, very progressive.
Very regulatory, pro-regulation.
Extremely regulated place with all kinds of people in charge of healthcare for Pennsylvania, for Philadelphia, etc. And he got away with that. So the idea that the numbers represent anything is nonsense anyway, because no one is following up with these people to demand them to send in the numbers anyway. But
I seem to remember that I think it's a small percentage of abortions are late term, but I think that are reported. But even the pro-abortion lobby, they admitted something like 9,000 or 10,000 a year. But that's the ones that are reported. I need to check those figures. But I mean, then you have people.
And one thing to remember too is that every state is different. So, for instance, Oklahoma and Minnesota have really, really good reporting when it comes to abortion. They break it down by gestational age, abortion procedure, the reason, who paid, was it private pay, was it insurance payment, were there any abortions prior, were there any complications? And every state is different. Some states only have to report voluntarily, which it's going to skew the numbers. You're not going to get an accurate depiction.
Yeah.
I always encourage states to follow the models that like Minnesota or Oklahoma, just because they have really, really good reporting. But you're right, it's very piecemeal. So we're just getting a snapshot. We're not getting the actual picture.
I have a lot of questions. Actually, I just think before we move on from Colorado, and I want to ask you about the general picture in the United States and what's going to happen after the Supreme Court. But before we do that, and I think we would do a disservice not to actually do this, even though it's very tough to talk about. And Magda mentioned it here at the beginning, like how does one do an abortion at 8 months and 6 days, etc., etc.? How is that even achieved? What do they do to the baby?
Well, I was reading the transcript from Dr. Carhart in the Stenberg v. Carhart, the first partial birth abortion trial at the Supreme Court. And the way that he was describing a non-intact D&E abortion, which is a dismemberment abortion, was so crude. Like the first time, I mean, now it's been years, so I don't cry anymore when I'm reading it. But in the beginning, I couldn't even get through it. I remember I was teaching a class and I had to read excerpts of it, and I couldn't do it without crying, because the way that he was talking about, guided by the ultrasound, he's looking at the fetal heartbeat, the baby's heartbeat on the ultrasound, how many passes he must make in and out of the vagina, tearing up the tissue so that then the vacuum could suck it up. And it was just, I mean, it was just like so inhumane. So I don't understand how anyone could do something like that, could just take the life of another living being, of another human being, of another living thing, in that manner. And you know, and he recalls at the right time that the heartbeat stops. And it's just it's very callous, very inhumane, and very brutal.
Can you actually, when we're, I mean, thank you for telling us that story. I mean, I mean, it recalls to us when we were working on the movie, the Gosnell movie, and working through the transcripts of the trial for that, with all of us, every one of us crying. Every person involved in this story cried and got sick, and people were vomiting, like everything going through that
I
stuff.
couldn't get through that jury report. I was just like, nope.
Would you do us a favor, by the way? I want to ask you to send us that transcript, by the way, because I would like to make it available to our audience. Sure. We'll put it up on our website and let people come and get it, because I actually think one of the things that we need to do is for people to know this. I mean, it's awful stuff, but I think people need to know this. I just wonder, I always wonder, and I'm kind of new to this whole story. I mean, you know, Gosnell was what introduced us to this horror. I'm always amazed what people don't know. And I actually wonder if the people of Colorado actually know what's going on at Hearn's Clinic in Boulder. I wonder, do they really know? And if they really knew, if they really, really knew, would they be in support of it? I mean, I always say, you know, we have 2 cats. I mean, I know that you have a pet bird there, and I know people love their pets, people love animals, people care about animal welfare. They'll go and protest about farming methods with, you know, industrial you know, production of food, etc., with animals. And I'm with them, actually. I get that. I actually get it, but I don't know how it doesn't lend itself to the question about abortion. I don't understand how they can't make that leap.
I don't understand it either. I remember, I started working at the National Right to Life Committee when Congress was debating partial birth abortion, and I was 19 then, and I just thought, there's no way, you can't even put a dog to death this way. There's no way they're doing that to a baby. And then shortly after that, Ron Fitzsimmons, who was previously the executive director for the National Coalition of Abortion Providers, was saying, I'm tired of feeling like a dirty abortionist. This is happening on healthy mothers of healthy fetuses all the time. And it just like blew everything out of the water, and everyone was just like, what? But I think that was probably the first time in the abortion debate that the focus was really on the unborn child. Before then, the abortion debate had been about rights and regulating the abortion industry and Hyde Amendment and parental involvement. And I would say about 95, when you started talking about partial birth abortion and the humanity of the unborn child, even people that were quote unquote pro-choice, they were just like, hey, listen, I'm pro-choice. However, I have a problem with this. And I think that Colorado is in a very good position to continue, not to start, because I know that you've got people on the boots there that have been doing this ministry for a long time. And so, but I think that especially now with the 3Ds and the 4D ultrasounds, especially now that we have babies that are surviving at 22 weeks gestation or post-fertilization age, that now is the time to start having these conversations and educating the public about the horrors of abortion, what happens during an abortion, what happens to the unborn child, about the developing unborn child. All of this needs to be reiterated and retold, and also the dangers of chemical abortions and the complications that come with that as well, and the possibility of abortion pill reversal and how many lives have been saved just because of that. So, you know, I think that there is a lot that the pro-life movement has been doing and can continue to do in order to stop extreme laws like this.
Is the law in Colorado, do you think it's going to be passed? And I suppose I have 2 questions here. Is it going to be passed? And how are Republicans on this? Are they holding the line, or are they backsliding?
Well, I feel like Republicans have been doing really well in co-sponsoring and sponsoring legislation that would, that's pro-life, whether it is, protecting the unborn baby once it's capable of feeling pain at 15 weeks, or heartbeat bills, heartbeat protection bills, born alive bills. We've been seeing a lot of different types of legislation in states. Some have been, born alive laws. Some have been heartbeat bills, ultrasound laws, just any way to start protecting unborn children or giving moms information so that they may choose life. One of my favorite pieces of legislation that passed in Arkansas last session was the EMMA, with Every Mom Matters Act. And this gives women facing unplanned pregnancies just more resources that are already in the states that can help moms choose life. Like, if she knows that she might get access to health care or child care so that she can finish school, that might make the difference between saying no to an abortion facility and yes to that baby.
This is a kind of philosophical question. I mean, it's hard for me to understand why it is that America has such extreme abortion laws that it can only compare to places like North Korea, I think China. Now, obviously, I think it's the same in Canada, bizarrely. Europe does not have anything like these laws that are here, where it's through 9 months. How did that even happen? How is that possible? What happened? What's wrong with America?
I would blame Roe. But I also think that our opposition is very crafty in their messaging and scaring people with this, the sky's falling, they're going to take away your rights. But we really do have to start digging deep into what those rights are. And when that right is the right to kill another human being, that's not necessarily a right. That's an atrocity.
What's going to happen if Roe is overturned, as we suspect it will be in June? What will happen in different states? What's going to happen around the country?
Well, every state is different, and we don't know what the Supreme Court is going to say. The best case scenario is that Roe is overturned. The most likely scenario is that we are going to get a different standard than the Roe or Casey standard that will allow states to pass pro-life laws prior to viability. And the worst case scenario would be that they affirm Roe and affirm Casey, which I don't think is going to happen. But I think that if it goes back to the states, every state is going to be different. In Colorado, it's going to be an uphill battle to save the lives of unborn children and protect those mothers. In places like Arkansas and Texas, they are, they have a pro-life majority in both houses. They have a pro-life governor and a pro-life attorney general. So, and they also have laws on the books that in the case of Roe being overturned, there is a trigger law. I would have to go back and look at my sheet just to see if I don't think Colorado's on that list, but every state is going to look different. And so in some states, they're going to be poised to have common sense protections for the unborn child and the mom. And in other states, it's going to be a lot harder. But I do believe that we still have a pro-life network of pregnancy resource centers, of, all these different groups that want to help mothers. And so I think that in a post-Roe America, we're going to have laws like the EMMA Act that will help moms choose life. And, I think it's important to enact laws like that as well.
What's your personal journey with this story? How did you get to where you are? What happened?
Well, I was pregnant at 16, and even though I was pressured by my family to abort, I stuck to my guns and fought for the life of my baby, and he will be 30 this July.
That's okay. Okay. You win the prize now. That is, oh my God, yeah. Good for you. That must have been that must have been tough. And where did you find support back then?
Well, I'm from Queens, New York, so I just would like to say that Queens never left me. The attitude and the spunkiness.
Okay. Oh my God, that's wonderful.
Never left me, and so I went to war with Planned Parenthood, and I won. So.
Oh, well, look, we congratulate you, and What a beautiful gift. And you have this beautiful boy who's 30 now. Oh my God.
And I do want to say this in closing, because I've been doing this for a long time. And sometimes, I mean, you see states go through these times where you just believe, like, I remember when I first started, I was just like, New Hampshire's never going to pass a pro-life law. It's going to be so hard. And then in 2003, they passed parental involvement, and it got all the way to the Supreme Court. And so I know that it may look grim in your state, but I would also say just to have faith. Mm-hmm. And to keep on fighting, because it's a wave, and just as it gets bad, it will get good. It will get a lot better.
Oh my God, I'm so glad I asked you that question, by the way, Ingrid. I would hate myself if I found out about that afterwards and hadn't asked you. We ask all our guests 2 final questions, Ingrid. I think I told you about this. And one is to share a piece of art, a movie, a poem, something, music that's important to them, and then a recipe that you're famous for in your house. Take it away, Ingrid.
All right. So I am famous for making a vegan. I'm not vegan, but I participate in the Daniel fast every January with my church, and so I don't eat for 2 weeks dairy or animal products. So I make a vegan tuna fish using chickpeas, seaweed, and lemon and pepper. And that's it. I just put it in my food processor, and onions and red onion. And I put it on crackers, and no one can believe that it's actually not tuna fish. It tastes just like tuna fish, and it's just chopped up chickpeas with seaweed and lemon.
And did you make this up? Did you make this up yourself?
No, I actually found it in a restaurant, and I Googled just the recipe because I really liked it. I couldn't believe it wasn't tuna fish.
Oh my God, that's fabulous. Okay. Love that. Okay, and what's your piece of art, Ingrid?
My piece of art would be a poem by Langston Hughes. It's called In Time of Silver Rain. In time of silver rain, the earth puts forth new life again. Green grasses grow and flowers lift their heads, and over all the plain, the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings to catch a rainbow's cry, and trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy beneath the sky, as down the roadway passing boys and girls go singing too, in time of silver rain, when spring and life are new.
Oh, I think the only word for that is perfect, Ingrid.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been really, really special. I'm really glad I got in touch with our dear friend, Jackie Ragan.
I love Jackie.
Oh,
Jackie's
God,
she's a doll.
We all feel like that about her. Anyway, we just adore Jackie. I mean, she's just fabulous. And I'm kind of I now need to add you to my Twitter family, because I'm kind of on Twitter with Jackie. We're sharing cat photographs at night. So, but listen, this was just fabulous. Thank you very much for your time, Ingrid. We really enjoyed it. Well, I'm so glad we had Ingrid on. What a beautiful person she is. What an amazing interview. I think we were all very touched by that. And I thought her story, which I didn't know about, by the way, really was very, very powerful. So glad we had her on. I wish more people could hear Ingrid and hear her story and hear more about her story.
Just to show you, I think, that these Colorado laws don't come just out of nowhere. This has been part of a process that's been going on of normalizing abortion and making it part of really, really mainstream. You've got that shout your abortion thing, but look, for example, there's a new play, a one-woman show opening in Manhattan at the Cherry Lane Theatre in late April, and it's a comedy about abortion. It's called Oh God, a Show About Abortion, and it's by Alison Levy, and so they're doing a comedy about abortion.
And she's like a big deal, right?
Yes,
She's like this woman. She's the woman who, I think she's the woman who wrote the marvelous Miss Maisel. I mean, she's a major name. And by the way, in terms of the producers, J.J. Abrams is one of the producers of this.
Yes.
So it's a very high level.
Oh yeah, big money being spent on it, and this is what the left do. Andrew Breitbart said it famously: politics is downstream of culture.
Yes.
These laws in Colorado just didn't arrive out of nowhere. They've been laying the groundwork. They have somebody working. Planned Parenthood have somebody working in Hollywood putting abortion stories into scripts.
Yeah.
They have.
It's intentional.
They have photo exhibitions. They have plays.
They have the ballet.
They have a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
They have photo exhibitions. Remember the one we were at in New York?
Yeah.
Look, this is ongoing all the time, and the cultural war that conservatives are not in, that Republicans are not in, the cultural battle of producing art, producing plays, producing movies like we do. Conservatives have just abdicated to the left. This leads
with a few exceptions, with a few exceptions on the abortion thing, obviously, because Unplanned, there was the movie Unplanned, there was our movie Gosnell. There have been a few, but in terms of the volume, I suppose the sheer volume of content,
not just abortion too. I mean, because the left's turn on abortion, but has come relatively recently. But the left have been at this culture war for 50 years.
Yeah, we're not in the races.
We're not
at
in
all.
the races at all,
yeah.
And that's why we're losing the culture war, and that is why. You're losing the political war, people, because the culture the politics has been made in the movie theaters, in the concerts, in the art exhibitions, in the plays, in the high schools, where we aren't at all.
So that's why we are literally the only 501c3 in the United States on the conservative side devoted to the arts and telling these important stories.
So yeah, Teresa Ghilarducci, who is an op-ed writer for Bloomberg, has very kindly helped the little people. She says inflation is particularly bad if you earn under $300,000 a year. Yes,
that'd be nice.
Yes, and she says, she says these are the ways that you can cut back costs and really beat this inflation. I have a couple of ideas. Allow oil producers to produce oil. Stop pretending there's a climate crisis.
Stop taxing oil.
Stop taxing people. How about giving everyone a 5% cut in their income tax? That'll be nice. That'll be simple. Or inflation 7%. Let's cut 7% of the income tax.
There you go.
Yeah, but no, her idea is don't eat meat, eat lentils.
Although I like lentils.
Or even switching to vegetables or only eat vegetables. Yeah. But though your palate may not be used to it, tasty meat substitutes include vegetables. Where prices are only up a little over 4%, are lentils and beans.
And by the way, if she mentions tofu, I'm going to walk off. I mean, there's something that, maybe vegetables, but tofu. Does she mention tofu? Phil?
No, she's planned to cut out the middle creature and consume plants directly. It's a more efficient, healthier, cheaper way to get calories. But the piece that really got to me was
this is very upsetting.
And for
those, there should be a warning here for those of you who have cats.
Yes, or dogs, or llamas,
any pet,
or horses.
Oh yeah. Even a bird, we had with Ingrid, yeah.
Yes. And for new pet owners, Ghilarducci advises, quote, to rethink those costly pet medical needs by cutting back on cancer treatment for much-loved furry friends. It may sound harsh, she says, but researchers don't recommend pet chemotherapy, which can cost up to $10,000 for ethical reasons. Researchers don't recommend it for ethical reasons. What does that even mean?
Buzz off, Ingrid. What's her name?
Teresa Ghilarducci.
You need to buzz off.
What does that even mean? I don't even understand what that means, right?
So hang on, what do you not understand?
Well, they don't recommend it for ethical reasons, not for medical reasons. What's the ethical conundrum for letting your cat live longer?
By the way, this is an interesting one, by the way, that she's just throwing veterinarians around the world under the bus there. Because obviously veterinarians do these chemotherapy treatments on animals, which, by the way, I do think is a bit extreme. To be honest, I have to say that. But
says me.
I know exactly what you're going to say, Philip. Says me until something happens with one of ours, and don't even mention the C word in relation to the cats. Do you like that, the C word in relation to the cats? But yes, we cannot speak about
if my
father knew
how much money was spent on Top Cat's broken leg. Let's have a picture of Top Cat there with the appendage. If my father knew, he would rise out of his grave and disown me on the spot.
And by the way, I would say the very same thing about my parents. They would be appalled. But there's the world we're living in. But anyway, that wasn't she lovely to say that. Anyway, we're coming to the very end of the show, and I just want to move on to talking about the air fryer very, very briefly. So I'm one of those people who I'm sure I'm not alone, who goes to Costco to buy 3 things and comes back with, a generator, a tent,
a pair of Wellington boots,
yeah, and
a wetsuit
and a motorbike. But anyway, so yes, that is a problem with Costco. But I did spy in Costco at a very cheap price, by the way, an air fryer, and I have heard a lot of very good things about air fryers. And so I succumbed, and I thought and by the way, I think I'll check this out, but I nearly think it was like $29, so that's how much it was. And I do think you can buy air fryers very cheaply. And of course, the great thing with Costco was that I was thinking, if I don't like it, I can bring it back. But I wanted to test it out, and I have to say, I think we're keeping the air fryer. So here's what I tried to do. Here's what I did. And by the way, I'm experimenting with this, and I did fish and chips. One thing to say, I didn't have my cameraman here for all of this shoot at the weekend, but for some of it I do. So you'll see what I did. But one thing to say to you that does really well in the air fryer, I have to say, is like potato wedges, chips, basically. But the trick, and I've worked this out over the weekend, is cut up your potatoes in advance. Obviously, cut your potato up whatever way you want to do it. I always keep the skin on because I think there's a lot of vitamins just underneath that skin. I really like the skin. So, but soak your potatoes for 10 to 15 minutes before, and then dry the potatoes really, really well afterwards. But if you soak them, you're going to get very crispy potatoes. Then what you want to do with those potatoes, by the way, is you want to douse them in oil and some pepper and salt and maybe some, paprika or whatever you like in terms of flavors. Do that. I would always do that in a Ziploc bag, and then you can put them into the bottom of the air fryer. And you see the way the air fryer has these 2 layers. On the top layer, this is where I'm going to put the fish. So this is a piece of cod I got in Trader Joe's. Very nice piece of cod, by the way. And what you want to do with that is just dry it really, really well, pepper and salt, and then you want to just douse it in flour. You can see I've done that. I don't know if I showed that.
I have a question.
Okay, go on ahead, Phelan.
What does the water exactly do?
The chemistry of this?
Yes.
I think it's something to do with starch, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'll tell you what it is. It is unbelievable, the difference. And you definitely want to do that. Then put that into an egg that you just broken that. I just broke up one egg because that's a small piece of fish I was dealing with there. If you were doing a lot more, you'd need 2 eggs. And then just take off the excess again of the egg, and then another Ziploc bag. Have in there your breadcrumbs. I made those breadcrumbs from bread I had already cooked myself. That's the kind of person I am. I put some parsley in there, pepper and salt in there, and you know what else you could put in, but I was under a bit of pressure time-wise? You could put in some nice, very finely grated Parmesan in there. Anyway, throw all your pieces of fish into the bag and give that a good stir around or whatever, move it around and make sure everything's nicely coated, and then put those pieces into the air fryer. And I would say, depending on the size of the fish, I would say about 5 minutes at 400 for those pieces of fish. You have to eyeball it a bit. And the one thing with fish is, the only big problem with fish is overcooking fish. We didn't overcook the fish. It was absolutely delicious. Super, super crispy. And underneath I had the potato wedges. So we had kind of fish and chips. And I do think, if you really, and I've tried a few other things in the air fryer already this weekend, it's really great for crisping food up. And what's obviously amazing about it is that it's got the deep fried effect without the oil. And so it's obviously the very healthy way of doing it. So if you're, and I think the price of these things is amazing. Now, the one thing is that you can see it's kind of a big enough machine. So if you've got a tight little small kitchen like we do, it is a bit of a problem. And by the way, one of the things that I have to mention here is, real estate in a kitchen is a big, it's a big issue. And, if you buy a big machine, you really need to know that you're using it. And I'm in that difficult situation where I'm not alone. I know that I'm not alone in this. I bought an Instapot because obviously I've read everything that everyone else has read, how amazing they are. It's been used once in 2 years, and it was not used by me. It was used by a friend of ours because I was too scared, and he said he'd do it. And he watched the YouTube. But people say it's fabulous. I'm too scared.
It's taking up a lot of real estate.
I think I might have to sell it. I might try one time to try and use it because people do swear by it. But if you have any thoughts on the Instapot and what you think I should do with it, please let me know. Anyway, we've come to the end of this week's podcast. Again, please be patient with us about My Son Hunter. You will be very proud and happy about how the film looks when it comes out.
Your film.
Your film. Again, your film. And we love that. We love that we have this extraordinary community of thousands and thousands of you guys who turn up when we come up with these ideas. And by the way, we have another project that we haven't told you about, the secret project, which we will also be able to tell you about very, very soon.
Okay, well, that's the end of the show
It is.
this week.
Thank you
very much. Go to mysonhunter.com, mysonhunter.com.
And if you can, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you get a podcast.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.